Hi everyone, welcome to Reconnect, where spirituality meets the messy but beautiful reality of being human. I'm Jean, and with me as always is my co-host Humphrey.
Hey, Jean and everyone. It's so good to be here today. Since it's July, our theme for the month is freedom. Today, we're going to dive into a super timely episode called The Art of Unplugging. Look around. We're right in the thick of summer, social season. Calendars are packed, patios are full, and our feeds are exploding with everyone's highlights. But the true freedom isn't just about the liberty to go anywhere and do everything. It's actually about the inner capacity to choose stillness. Today, we're exploring the power of solitude and about the inner capacity to choose stillness. Can you actually be alone with your thoughts right now without reaching for a quick distraction? It's a spiritual evolution we all desperately need in this loud world.
Oh, absolutely, Humphrey. You and I talked about this all the time. It's so easy to mistake a packed social calendar for fulfillment. But if we can't sit by ourselves, are we really free? Let's peel back those layers together. To get us started, how do we even begin to define what true solitude looks like compared to just being physically alone?
Ooh, all right. So it depends. It depends how you. It depends which angle we take to look at this, right? But generally speaking, it depends. If you look at it from a science point of view, you look at it from a religious or a spiritual point of view. Solitude or healthy solitude is when you choose to be alone for a reason, right? You choose to take a break. Say, look, I'm
Yeah.
gonna maybe go for a hike on my own, or I am going to sit and read a book just to calm myself because I have some time and be peaceful. But it is something you choose with time, right? Like if you think about it, like I have the time, I'm making time to do this versus the oh my god, I got 5 minutes here. I'm gonna start like clearing out my emails or checking out my phone, looking at all stuff because I have a little bit of time to do this, right? So it's the way I tell most people, or the way I look at it, is in the world we live in today, we think that if we get 5 minutes for ourselves, I got time for me, right? That's solitude. But what do we do with those time? The difference is what do we do with that time, right? And we're so conditioned to do something like check emails or Instagram or Snapchat or what
Yeah, yeah,
happened. You know, like you really don't actually take time for yourself. Whereas when you consciously say, I'm going to go for a hike on my own, it's a great day today. I'm going to take, I don't know, an hour, 2 hours for myself. I'm going to walk and do that because to be by myself with my thoughts, that's the
yeah.
difference.
I think we talked about this in like another episode, but for me, when I was thinking about or listening to your answer, I was thinking about like the difference between like solitude and feeling lonely, right? Whereas
Right.
this question is more of like, what's the difference between like a nurturing solitude versus just physically being isolated? And I think
Exactly.
the two things differ. The distinction is very slight, but what it is one's a choice and then
Mm-hmm.
the other just kind of happens to you.
Exactly. That is right. That's right. Yeah, yeah. I made a
Right?
choice versus it
You
just
made a
happened. Like, yeah.
choice
Yeah.
to be alone because you want to do things that you enjoy,
Right.
right?
Right.
Versus like isolation doesn't feel like a choice. Isolation by definition, I think is like you're being partitioned away from other people, right? Like
Right.
purposely
Right.
divided. And that I think inherently comes with like the lack of choice of that because by that word isolation, right? It's that no one wants to be isolated. Everybody
Right.
in isolation that infers that you want the opposite of that, which is you want company,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Whereas the word solitude is more indicative of like, hey, I've decided that I wanted time for myself.
Time for myself. That's true.
Right?
That is true. That
Right?
is true. That's
So
true.
I, for me, I think that that's the difference. It's always the difference between like, hey, being fulfilled and being alone or being lonely,
Right.
right? Nurturing solitude versus physical isolation, right? It's like
Right.
I choose versus what I deem is happening to me.
You see, okay, so and I like that, and I think you're totally right. That's it. But let's dig a little deeper into that because I think what I mentioned about this day and age, right? I think people, because we're so connected, right, and we're
Mm-hmm.
so on all the time, the moment that you feel alone, like the moment that you're not connected, you
Mm-hmm.
feel isolated. You know what I mean? Like,
I
even
don't
though
think
it
that
may
happens
not
to
be.
everyone. That doesn't happen to me.
No, no, but you're not. But you're not this Gene. We can't compare everybody to
But
you
that's what
because
I'm
you know it like
saying.
that.
Like,
But say
but
generally
I
speaking,
think,
right? People feel like, oh, like you know what I mean? Like the moment that you're alone, like if you just take a look. Like actually, today I was having dinner with the girls in this restaurant,
mm-hmm,
and people can't even sit there and like we saw a couple they couldn't sit there without looking at their phone, right? Like they stop,
right.
like they say whatever, put the menu down, and then start looking at the phone. I'm like it's the feeling of like like my sense, right, is that we are so connected and there's so much stuff coming at us now that the moment that stops, people feel isolated, even though they're really not. You know what I mean? Like it just they feel like, oh, this is being forced on
See,
me, so they feel like
that's
this need
weird.
to do something.
See, that's weird that you say that because I think so. I think there's a I don't know how big of the population that it is, but there's a population that is going to agree with me when they're listening to this
Yeah, yeah,
podcast, right? Which is they prefer being alone or they like it. Call it introverts, call it whatever you want,
yeah.
right? But when you say to me that two people that you witness two people sitting across the table from each other and they're just looking at their phones, you see that as, oh, they're connected, right? I see it as that's actually solitude, like they're disconnected, right? The
No,
fact
no,
that they're
we're agreeing on
sitting,
that. I agree with you. I
okay,
agree
okay,
with you. I
because
mean
in
that
my head I'm
my
like,
point.
you're
Yeah,
sitting there across from each other where you're supposed to be connecting, right? But instead of
right,
connecting with the person that's across the table having a meal with you, you're like in your own, like on your own phone, in your own space, because that other person's not sharing that experience with you, right? You're just kind of in your own thing.
right, right. And so I agree 100% with you. My point is not like what I was trying to highlight is we are so conditioned to be like connected somehow, like not just with somebody, to something, right? That people cannot even sit at a restaurant with someone there, just be there, like just being there, right? Being aware of like we're in a restaurant. Like you know how you're in a normal conversation, there's silences, right? Like sometimes there's a silence. You're thinking about something, right? When you're talking to somebody,
Mm-hmm.
somebody's thinking, whatever. That's okay. You can wait, relax, and then we continue the conversation. My point is, people take that as, oh, I feel like if there's a moment of silence or there's a moment of calmness, it's just no, I'm alone, and they need to be connected through
Oh,
the
you mean
phone or
like
something.
filling in
Yeah, they're filling
the
in that gap. They're filling in the thing. Like we're not able. Like we're kind of. I think we're, and I agree. There's a lot of people, myself included, that isolated, like no isolation, solitude or being in peace is totally okay. Being by yourself is okay, but there is a huge, and I don't want to make this a generational thing, but I'll make it a generational thing. There's a generation that has that is literally connected to these things, right? And they don't feel they cannot they feel isolated when there is a quiet moment or when there is peaceful. You know what I mean? Like they don't understand. It's almost like solitude is something that they don't understand. To them, well, for us would be solitude. They feel it as isolation. Does that make
yeah,
sense?
yeah, yeah. I wonder what the numbers are. I'm going to take out my trusty AI friend really quick, but I
Yeah.
wonder what how the numbers correlate between somebody that is that feels disconnected
Right.
with like social media use,
That's true. That's true.
right? Like, let me type it in. Um, but I mean, I feel like my personal thing is there's a danger in that, right? There's an invisible cost to when you don't unplug and you are
Yeah.
always around other people, right?
Right.
Because you're like, at least for me, I can only speak for myself, right? Is that when I spend too much time out there, and when I say out there, it's not just with your friends or like out
Mm-hmm.
hanging out, but like working and focusing on other things other than just kind of like being with myself and letting
Right.
my like processing thoughts and whatever, is that I become more and more disconnected with what I really want in life, why
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing certain things, right? And I
Yeah.
feel more uncomfortable. So the people that
Right.
feel uncomfortable in like this empty silences and they have to fill it, I actually feel more not myself if I don't spend enough time kind of like grounding myself or kind of returning to myself, I guess.
Right.
Right? Because you're
Right.
like you're out there all over the place, but at some point you got to come home to yourself and like rest, right? I
Yeah.
don't know.
So that's interesting you bring that up, Gene, because I think through our research, one of the things that came up is most people, even though they're all plugged in and connected, they feel more tired, right? Like if you ask,
Mm,
because to your point, we do innately have a need to. I mean, you think about it when you're connecting, whether it's to devices or physically with people or in environments, you're giving out your energy, right? It's at the end of the day, it's just energy, right? Like you're either consuming, independent of the person you are. If you're energy sensitive, right, you're taking energy from people, you're capturing, but you're giving out, and that is what you said is you feel like you separate from yourself, right? You get distant from your goals, from who you are, because you're giving your energy away, right? It literally consumes that energy. So we do need, and it's interesting because all spiritual practices and all theories have the same practice, right? Like meditation or prayer, like it's taking
yeah.
time for yourself because we need it.
Okay. My trusty AI assistant. College student data cited by I think it's Science Mex, I guess. A massive U.S. national study analyzing nearly 65,000 young adults between the ages of 18 and 24
Okay.
found that 54% reported feeling lonely.
Well,
Those using social media for 16 to 20 hours a week were 19% more likely to feel isolated than non users.
see, that's
For
more
the
a point.
heaviest users, for the
Yeah.
heaviest users, 30 plus hours a week, that likelihood jumped up to 38%.
So there is a correlation. See, now the data is
That's
proving our point.
yeah,
That's
that's
crazy.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, honest.
So
You know what? You can see it. You can see it. And guys, I didn't want to make it to our listeners, and I want to make a general thing, but Gene's research just proves it. 18 to 24, that cohort of people, because they are the ones that are literally are connected to this thing. Like that's the generation that grew up with these type of social media and devices, and to them, that's like second nature. It is like to me, it's increasing that sense of like they can't be on a quiet like what I notice because I have a household full of them that they do get tired, right? Like it's like they go and then they just need, to your point, you always need to recharge, right? But it's like almost like I consider I say like when you go out all the time and you have to you hang over and you need to rest, it's like a hangover from social media, from too much exposure, right? Like they need to just
Yeah.
rest, right?
Yeah.
But you know what they do?
What?
They go back and grab the thing. That's the thing. I'm like, I don't understand. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, but it is. You know, it's that sense we need, you know, I think where we're leading the conversation
Do you
is we
think?
need to recharge. We need a way to unplug, right? The art of unplugging, unplug from these things and recharge because we need that energy. That's
Okay.
how
Okay.
we
So,
humans do
so
it.
here, let me toss a wrench into this whole conversation, right? Which
Okay.
is like our assumption is that people are unaware that they need
Right.
to like have nurturing solitude.
Yeah.
But what about the people that are aware, but they just don't do it? And then why do they not do it? Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because in what you're saying about the people in your household, right, is
Right.
that they are aware, but then they go and they
No,
do
no,
other
no, no, no,
other
no.
things.
They're not aware. What I'm saying is, they're. My point is, they are not aware. And if they're told that they should, it's just no. That's not true. No, no. Like you know, like they're
Oh,
really not aware. But you do bring a good point for the people that are aware
yeah.
and they don't do it. Then
Yeah.
that's
Why
a
do
whole
they not
different
do
ball
it?
game, right? That's a whole different ball game, right? Now I have theories on why, but there's a whole different ball games.
Like
But
there's a fear factor there where they don't want to confront certain things or something.
yeah, yeah, because it's kind of like let's call it you're confronted with your demons, right? Like the things you gotta work on, right? Like when you're in the quiet, when you stop and
Yeah.
everything else quiets out, what happens? Your mind, all you can hear is your own thoughts and your own idea, your own feelings in particular, right?
Yeah.
And that means you have to deal with those. So anybody that has gone through any kind of process, whether it's psychological or spiritual, you know that you got to do the work, and the work requires you to be calm and listen to it. So I think, to your point, there's people that know, but they don't do it because they don't like the feeling, right? Because they don't want to deal with
Well, who
something,
really likes
or
that feeling, right?
nobody does. Nobody likes it. It's horrible. Nobody likes. But
I can.
you got to go
But
through
so
it.
so so if we don't like, so what would you just say to somebody, right? That it sucks. I mean, we've all been through it at some on some level or not, right? What
Right.
would you say to somebody that is like, yeah, I'm aware I need to, but I don't want to. It sucks.
Right. Uh, you know what? I'll be honest.
What would you
I
tell your
struggle with that.
girls?
No, I struggle with that because it's kind of like,
Yeah.
so I struggle like, okay, so and I'm glad you brought my girls. So I've at the beginning I would be like trying to, oh, you guys have to do this and trying to explain it to them from a spiritual perspective, and I just got laughed out of the room or what. It's just they're like, wow, whatever, right? It's just I don't hear it. But what I found recently, right,
Yeah.
through the struggle is relating the experience to something that they've gone through, right? As in, for instance, one of my girls, as you know, it's into sports, although it's so sport. One of them is into running, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
uh, relating the pain at the beginning of train, like, in her early stages, the struggle that she had to go through, right, to get to a particular
Yeah.
level, and now where she's at, and how much she's enjoying it, how easy it is, and how comparing it to that, right? It's like, look, you went through that process. It's the same thing, right? Like it might be a struggle at the beginning, but once you get the hang of it, you deal with things, it gets easier, right? So kind of to trying to relate it, and that I find works for not just kids, for everybody. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
relating it to, but it's finding what works for, like, because I think everybody has gone through something, right? Whether they're,
Yeah.
let's say, working out or with job situation, that they're confronted with a hard scenario, and then they overcome it, right? Or
Yeah.
they go through it. So it's relating them to that experience to help them kind of like at least get the thought process on it. But I found myself trying to go straight out with some spiritual knowledge or some wisdom, that just doesn't work. And it doesn't work for anybody because nobody wants to be told that.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
So
But that's why I was like, like, how do we kind of like we're in the trenches with everybody that's listening, right? And
Yeah.
the reality of it is that we all, it's not a comfortable place to be, right?
Right.
But I think I should also say that like everybody has their own timing. And sometimes if you're like, I don't want to deal with it, right? Like for just right now, and you need some space from that, that's okay too, right?
Right.
Like sometimes you don't have to confront everything all the time. When we say like nurturing solitude, doesn't mean like you're like by yourself, like freaking like just spinning out on these things and thinking about it and doing work. It could
Right.
also be like, dude, I just need some space from thinking about these things, these other things, and whatever. And just to for me to feel like, I'm sure your subconscious is kind of like working around in the background, but you just taking a break from life and from
Right.
even yourself sometimes, right?
Right.
But you choose that. And then what ends up, like for me, what ends up happening for me is like, once I've gotten enough space, like things will start, either my perspective changes on whatever that situation is, or like I am ready to do the work, ready to sit in the discomfort, right?
Right.
But it's okay to actually go, I don't want to deal with this shit right now, right? Like I
It's
just
totally.
want, yeah, I
Yeah.
just want to sit here and Netflix and like and just get some space from
Oops.
everything, right?
Right.
I think the only time it becomes an issue is that that is just your default button, and then you never really like address issues, and that could
Right.
then compound on itself, right?
Right.
But for you to want to take time, I think that's a part of having like true nurturing solitude.
So, okay. So how do you, so let me ask you a question, because you brought something, to your own experience. How do you break that? How do you break the cycle, right? So to your point, like if you don't want to deal with something or whatever, like the moments that you say you're feeling drain or energy, or you're feeling separate from yourself because you haven't had the quiet time. We all, as an example, we all kind of get caught up in work. Work is the best example because everybody at some point gets all caught up and I don't have time. I don't have time. How do you break? What can you do? Or what do you do to break that? Like, how do you yourself remind yourself, wait, I need to do this?
So for me, it is that solitude. So when you get enough space, right, where you're not thinking about anything, let's say you're Netflixing it out. Like we all, I feel, I mean, we're spiritual beings, right? Like, so we
Right.
have that inner voice, but that inner voice is usually drowned out
Mm-hmm.
by the work. Oh, I don't have time for stuff. Oh, I got to go do this and I got to do that. And you get further and further away where you can't really hear that voice anymore.
Right.
But when you actually decide to have solitude and be on your own, there's a period of time where you don't have a voice because you don't not hearing a voice because you really do just need space. And then
Right.
once you get enough space, that space creates the opportunity for you to actually hear your inner voice to tell you like, I'm sure everybody here is like, oh, you got to like figure this out. Of course,
Right.
we talk back to that voice, be like, I don't want to deal with it. Right. But we all know like the voice is like, well, you need to deal with this
Maggot,
or
you need
else
to deal
this,
with
this,
this.
and this. Right.
Right. Right.
But I
Right.
think we all have that inner voice. It's just that the day to day shit that we have to deal with drowns out that voice. And we get further.
Right.
And the more it drowns out that voice and you're not connected to it, the more like apart you feel, the more disconnected.
Right.
So even like you're sitting in a room full of people or you have a packed social calendar, you're still going to feel disconnected because you're
Yeah.
feeling disconnected not from them, you're feeling disconnected from yourself. And if you're disconnected from yourself, then you can't connect to other people.
Right. And that's the counter. That's the counter. It's not the counter, but that is the part that is, it's hard for people to see, right? Because they think, oh, I need to stay, I need to stay in the grind, or I need to stay doing this because otherwise I'm going to be disconnected. But you're feeling that. Whereas if you do take the time, right, and connect to yourself again, then you become more like you can connect better because
Yeah.
once you like you can regain that whole focus and you get more honed in, right? Like, but it's that. it's hard for people to see that, like almost to see the end result when they're in it, right?
Right, because you're not having enough again, it goes back to like you don't have enough time to have that perspective, because
Right,
everybody, what it means for them to feel connected, what it means for them to feel fulfilled, is that picture looks different for everyone,
right,
right?
right,
But like, in order to know what that picture looks like for you, like you're not out there like in the picture trying to look at you can't look at the picture if you're in the picture.
right,
If
right,
that
right,
makes
right.
sense, right? You got to
Yeah,
take a step
yeah.
back to look at the picture, right? When you're in the picture, you're in it. You can't see it, right?
Right.
So I think
So
like
what can we tell these people? So what can we suggest for people to help them unplug, right? So I think what we're saying is they can, even though it's hard, right, and being in the quiet or whatever, but doing that, it's going to help
mhm.
bring you back to yourself and bring your focus. It's going to help with that energy. So what are practical steps that we can give them? And I have a feeling we want to say the same thing we always say, but what are some of the things that they can do?
So I'm going to take a step back from even the practical step, which is like ultimately at the beginning of even of this podcast, the definition of solitude versus isolation, right?
Yeah.
And it has to begin with a choice,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So we could tell you all the practical steps. We could tell you, oh, take a step back, blah, 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 take a breath, whatever, whatever. The reality is that it has to be a choice on the
Right.
listeners, that they say, hey, you know, I need to take some time for myself and take a step back, or I need to create this space. I think
Right.
what we could do, the best thing we could do is to say, why is that valuable? Right?
Right.
Like, and then it's up to everybody that's listening to decide whether that's worth it for them or not. Right. And okay, well, this is what we've experienced as pitfalls of if you don't do it.
Right.
And I think their inner voices all will tell. I mean, everyone knows like everything that we're talking about. I don't think people are like, that's like earth shattering, like, oh, this is so wise and insightful. And I never even thought about these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think everybody knows. Ultimately, it becomes a choice. Are you going to do
Actually,
it or
you know
not?
what? We've always, it's not that we dance around the subject, but we always tell people like things to do. But you just this episode, we just hit it on the nail. It's a choice, and
Yeah.
what we're
Everything is a
asking,
choice in life.
it is a choice. But especially with this, what we're trying to achieve with solidarism, if we're asking anything of everybody and on our listeners is make the choice for yourself, right? Make the choice that's going to be good for you, right? It is worth it. It will help. You will feel better. You will feel more energetic. It will allow you to connect better with people. But it is your choice. So all we're asking is make that choice for you, because it is
Yeah.
going to
And
be
then
better.
I think wrapping it, because it's the month of July, and why we decided to talk about this specific is that, like, to me, choices, like having the ability to choose, ultimately
Mm-hmm.
translates to freedom, right? Like,
Right?
you
Right?
can, if you get to choose whatever, that's the freest that you get, right? The freedom of choice, right?
Right.
And so the more you choose and you don't let life circumstance dictate to you based on what happens to you, like when you're going to, how you think about something, or when you're going to take time from yourself, or when you're going to do all these things, I think that equates to more self-ownership, but more freedom.
So here's our call to action for everybody listening this week. And honestly, a reminder for you and me too. Find just 20-minute block in your calendar. Turn your devices completely off and just sit with your own thoughts. Make that choice for you. Notice the itch to check your phone, breathe right through it, and see what clarity surfaces when the static drops away. As Jean said, true freedom isn't somewhere out there, It's waiting right in the quiet. Until next time, this is Jean and Humphrey signing off. Stay connected, stay calm.